I'm very grateful to be here tonight at Sri Sri Radha Govinda Mandir in Brooklyn, New York. And I'm also very grateful to all the organizers and the residents for pulling off something at a very last moment, especially Janaki and Prabhu Vishnu Prabhu. I don't see Hamsarupa Prabhu here, but my greetings to him. And Pancharatra Prabhu, it's such a pleasant surprise to see you. And so today is Pandava Nirjala Ekadashi. That means a lot of devotees I'll tell you what it is. I'm holding it in my hand right here. And the story of this So I thought, okay, I'll sign up for this. And the market was on. Said, no, you're not doing that. I was thinking to myself, who is this gentleman in my house telling me what I can or cannot do for my career? that it was my job somehow to go and find the and share it with people who are interested in this. And so that was 22 years back. And today I'm here with you just to do that. What I have with me is a handwritten song from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Do you know who Bhaktivinoda Thakur is? Who doesn't know who Bhaktivinoda Thakur is? I will explain. You know Srila Prabhupada, right? You know who Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master is? Bhaktivinoda Saraswati. His picture is on the wall. Right? You see Prabhupada on the extreme left. Right next to Prabhupada is his spiritual master. Next is his spiritual master. And then on this wall, the first picture is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And you will see his pictures anywhere around the world you go, in all ISKCON and other Gaudiya Vaishnava temples. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master. And he was the first one to discover the archaeological remains of Mahaprabhu's birthplace. Thank you. And the first one to say that this bhakti movement should spread around the world and also provide a blueprint on how to do this. So if we are meeting tonight, it is ultimately by the grace of Bhaktivinoda Thakur that this Krishna consciousness movement is actually there in the West. Srila Prabhupada introduced the songs of Bhaktivinoda Thakur for all of us to sing. And so after Tamal Krishna Goswami put me on this track, I ended up doing my research masters at Oxford University in the UK on the biography of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then after that, I ended up doing a PhD on the topic of Vaishnavism and the West at the University of Chicago, where the department is number one on planet Earth. But, I say it very easily today, but the journey was more difficult than you can imagine. And this is how we started. Are you ready? So this instruction that he gave me, that go and get the works of our previous acharyas, was around July 2001. That's about 23 years back. About 8 months later, he was back. Pancharatna Prabhu was there in Mayapur, I remember, in March 2002. And I was there with him, and he was, we had wonderful conversations. Then on 14th of March 2002, we were packing up because he was leaving and he was doing his PhD at Cambridge at that point. And he had written everything but the conclusion of his PhD thesis. So he was saying, I'll go back, I'll finish, and then I'll come back straight to Bengal and we'll all work together. And his dream was that during Mahaprabhu's life, Navadvip and Shantipur was like the Oxford and Cambridge of Asia. Due to constant invasions, bad economic policies, bad governance, everything was destroyed. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur had said that when we are able to re-establish these places as centers of learning, the real glory of Mahaprabhu's birthplace will be known around the world. So his point was, well, everything is destroyed, but we should start somewhere. So I'll get my PhD, and we'll come here and start some educational facilities. And Krishna-abhisheka, please go get your degrees and come and help me. That was what we were discussing. And then on 14th of March, at about 8:30 p.m. at night, he came and said, we were supposed to travel next morning together to Calcutta. And he said, no, we don't have space in the car. You go first, I'll see you later. I said, okay. I wasn't very happy about it. And the next morning, about 5:15 or 5:30 a.m. in the morning, I got a phone call saying that the driver had fallen asleep on the wheel, and on his way to Calcutta, the car had crashed and he had passed away. And I realized that, we cannot take anybody's life for granted on this planet. I was just thinking, everything he was telling me, I was just nodding my head. I was very young. I said, okay. And for the first time, I got a shock in my life that somebody who was just there yesterday, having very sweet conversations with you, could be gone tomorrow morning. And for the first time in my life, I actually took him very, very seriously. And that's when my Indiana Jones life began. And since then, I haven't had a boring day in my life, to be honest with you. I realize the depth of the stuff we are doing. Sometimes we come to the temple on Sundays, we have a nice feast, we speak with some friends, we network. Sri Sri Radha Govinda Ki Jai. They're so gorgeous. And so after that, I was in the deep villages of Bengal, making friends with descendants of all of these past masters. And sometimes I would go to someone's house and they would say, I'm really sick, I can't move. And I would arrange for doctors and play with their grandchildren and sometimes cook with them. I became friends with all these people. And gradually, what I realized is that they began to give me what is considered the biggest treasures of Vaishnavism. So I still remember there was one sadhu in Navadvip who lived in a house which was about 6 feet by 10 feet. And he just had one wooden bed. He used to go outside for his bathroom and a kitchen outside. That's all he had. And under his bed were trunks full of books, 300, 400, 500 years old. And he was complaining that there are so many mosquitoes that he can't sleep, so he needed to clear them out. You're laughing, but this is reality. And I said, Babaji, what do you do with these books? He said, whenever I find the one in the worst shape, on a Vaishnava festival, I go to the Ganga and put it in the water. Yes. I said, can I take a look? I said, sure. Whatever is, mi casa, su casa. He didn't say that in Spanish. And I began to explore. And oh my God, here are all the works of our acharyas that we, hear about, speak about. Some of them were right there. And so in this way, I made friends with many people and they opened their homes to me. But my PhD, my doctorate dissertation, was on Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So I made friends with his family. And very soon, I didn't realize this, but after those connections, I realized that our ancestors were related. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur was born in a village called Birnagar. And Birnagar was the ancestral home of my paternal cousins. So I said, it's Krishna's blessings, let's go. And at Birnagar, I saw that there were trunks and trunks and trunks of books and handwritten literatures. And I began to go through everything, and I saw that these were all from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And so a few years later, there was a very distinguished devotee and disciple of Srila Prabhupada called Harishauri Prabhu. He was working on a research center in Calcutta called Bhaktivedanta Research Center. And a lot of those collections are saved there today. I can't possibly carry things with me. So they have something, and there are other libraries that have it. And so what I have for you here is a page from Bhaktivinoda Thakur's songbook called Sharanagati. And we're going to sing the song and read it and try to pray and meditate. But before I get in there, I want to ask a question to you. How many of you have ever felt that you are offering your heartfelt prayers to Krishna, but Krishna doesn't listen? How many of you felt that way? Is it working? Or am I just talking in my own mind? Huh? You had that doubt? Somebody had that doubt sometime? That am I just, I don't know who taught me to fold my hands and stand in front of Krishna and talk or express my heart, but I don't know whether Krishna is actually listening. Right? We have this doubt. Okay, Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives an answer to that doubt. Can we go to the next slide? We will start from the middle of the song and then we will sing the whole thing together. Yes, this one. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that whoever has 6 things, dainya means humility. So when we pray, are we praying with utter humility? Are we saying, Krishna, this is beyond me? And there is a poem that actually talks about why our prayers ain't answered. You want to listen to a little poem, English poem? It's not from Bhaktivinoda, but it's a good poem. As children, okay, listen to this carefully. As children bring their broken toys with tears for us to mend. Have you ever seen children with a broken toy going to them? Can you please fix it for me? As children bring their broken toys with tears for us to mend, I brought my broken dreams to God because He was my friend. But instead of waiting for Him to work alone, I hung around and tried to help with methods that were my own. Do we do that with God? Krishna, help me, but let me tell you how to do it. At last, I snatched them back and said, God, how can you be so slow? My child, God said, what can I do? You never did let go. Isn't that so true? That whenever we come to Krishna and we say, Krishna, please, I am in a lot of trouble. Or Krishna, please, this is not going the right way. Or Krishna, please, do something. I'm stuck. But then, instead of leaving Krishna to work, we try to impose our sense of timing on Krishna's sense of timing. And then we aren't patient enough to wait and let Krishna work. We snatch them back and say, how can you be so slow? What do you expect? And so, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains in this particular song on the art of letting go. Okay? This is the theme for tonight. Remember this? The art of letting go. How do you do that? The first thing he explains is humility. That if I hold on to it, that says that I am better than you. And to be honest, I am not. Then offering oneself. Right? When we come to Krishna, we think that, I know you are the boss, but let me really tell you who is the boss. We don't offer ourselves. If we put ourselves in Krishna's hands for him to mold us, things would look so different. In fact, Krishna puts us in trouble so that he can mold us. But we don't want to wait for that. And then accepting shelter. That we accept Krishna's shelter, but Goptritva Baran means to accept the shelter of Krishna and his devotees. Krishna is never alone, first of all. And Krishna alone will not help you. Whenever Krishna helps, he comes with everybody. Radharani, Ashtashakis, all our Guru Varga. Then the fourth is confidence. Avashya rakhibe Krishna vishwasya palan. Right? That Krishna will certainly protect. Then the fifth part of Sharanagati, the art of letting go, is to accept whatever is favorable to one's devotional service. And the sixth one is to let go of whatever is unfavorable to one's devotional service. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, if you pray to Krishna embracing these 6 things, Krishna will listen to your prayer. Right? So the answer, why isn't Krishna listening to my prayer? Because we are not embracing Sharanagati. Right? And I called, one of the way I translate Sharanagati is shelter seeking. Sharana means shelter. Right? If there is a huge, I just came from Florida, and in Florida you get these hurricanes. And a lot of houses in Florida are made of little 2x4 wooden things, and if the wind is a little stronger than what the engineer expected, the next thing you know is that your house is flying away. And then your insurance prices go up. It has one of the highest insurance rates in the country. Right? And then there are these places made with bricks and mortar and very thick walls. And it's written outside, tornado shelter. You know what that means? If you see trouble, don't go and take shelter in one of the weaker places. Go to a place that will actually protect you. The difficulty in our lives is that when we get into trouble, we think of our best friends, we think of our colleagues, we think of the government systems, and all those are useful. But the strongest shelter is God. And if we don't go there, none of these other things will shelter us for a very long time. And agati means to come to. So come to or seek. Shelter is sharanagati. The residents of this temple know that at the end of the day, they are under the shelter of Radha Govinda. Doesn't it give you some peace of mind? Right? If you were anywhere else in New York City, would you have that same peace of mind? No. See, this is the proof that Bhaktivinoda Thakur's system works. Okay? And so, for many years, as I was looking for these manuscripts, looking for treasures, I had to take shelter of Guru and Krishna. And, out of nowhere, things just started appearing, and my only responsibility was to curate them. And I say, I have this one mission in life, starting with 3 Ps. Preserve, practice, pass it on. That, these things that you get, knowledge is very rare. The knowledge that has saved you, that has brought you here tonight, is not easily available. It has taken a lot of effort to put it into your hands. And this knowledge is ineffective till you practice it. And it's further ineffective unless you pass it on, right? And that's what we do with knowledge. And these literatures that we have with us tonight are the source of knowledge. This is when this knowledge was created. And so the verses say, let's go out the slide before this one, please. Who's handling this? I don't know. Oh, you are? Okay, thank you. Can we recite this together? Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Jive Daya Kori Shaparshado Shio Dham Shahoy Avatori. Next one. অত্যন্ত দুর্লভ প্রেম করিবারে দান শিখায়ে শরণাগতি ভকতের প্রাণ দৈন্য আত্মনিবেদন গোপ্তৃত্বে বরণ অবশ্য রক্ষিবে কৃষ্ণ বিশ্বাস পালন ভক্তি অনুকূল মাত্র কার্যেরও শিকার there is a typo there ভক্তি প্রতিকূল ভাব বর্জন অঙ্গীকার. Let's go to the next one. সরঙ্গ শরণাগতি হইবে যাহার তাহার প্রার্থনা শুনে শ্রীনন্দ কুমার রূপ সনাতন পদে দন্তে তৃণ করি ভকত বিনোদ পরে দুহু পদ ধরি কাঁদিয়া কাঁদিয়া বলে আমি তো অধম শিখায়ে শরণাগতি কর হে উত্তম. The translations are right next to it. Isn't that a beautiful song? Okay. Let us sing it together. I can just play the kartals and somebody can play the mridangas and the harmonium. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Jive Daya Kori Shaparshad Shio Dham Shahoy Avatori. Together. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Jive Daya Kori Shaparshad Shio Dham Shahoy Avatori. অত্যন্ত দুর্লভ প্রেম করিবারে দান শিখায়ে শরণাগতি ভকতের প্রাণ অত্যন্ত দুর্লভ প্রেম করিবারে দান শিখায়ে শরণাগতি ভকতের প্রাণ দৈন আত্মনিবেদন গোপ্তৃত্বে বরণ অবশ্য রক্ষিবে কৃষ্ণ বিশ্বাস পালন দৈন আত্মনিবেদন গোপ্তৃত্বে বরণ অবশ্য রক্ষিবে কৃষ্ণ বিশ্বাস পালন ভক্তি অনুকূল মাত্র কার্যের শিকার ভক্তি অনুকূল মাত্র কার্যের শিকার ভক্তি প্রতিকূল ভাব বর্জনাঙ্গীকার ভক্তি প্রতিকূল ভাব বর্জনাঙ্গীকার সরঙ্গ শরণাগতি হইবে যাহার তাহাঙ্গ শরণাগতি হইবে যাহার তাদেরও প্রার্থনা শুনে Nanda Kumar. Kaharo Karthona Shuni Nanda Kumar. Rupo Sanatana Pade Dante Trino Kori. Rupo Sanatana Pade Dante Trino Kori. Bhakti Vinoda Pare Tuhu Pada Dhari. Bhakti Vinoda Pare Tuhu Pada Dhari. Kadiya Kadiya Bale Amito Adha. Kadiya Kadiya Bale Amito Adha. Shikhaye Sharanagati Karo He Uttam. Shikhaye Sharanagati Karo He Uttam. Isn't that beautiful? Before we move on to the next part of this program, where I tell you what else I have for you tonight, I want to pause and take any questions on what we have discussed so far, or any comments, thoughts, realizations. Yes, bro. Is there a second microphone?
It seems like
And what's your name,
it's an
Prabhu?
amazing task we've been given, just in art actually. And how vast is the works of Bhaktivinoda?
How vast are the works of Bhaktivinoda Thakur?
Yes.
That's a very good question. Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote about 100 volumes, each anywhere between 450 to 600 pages. So on an average, let's say 500 page. So 500 into 100 is?
Too many.
50,000 pages.
Oh my.
By comparison, Srila Prabhupada wrote about 70 volumes. And here's the thing, Srila Prabhupada had a dictating machine, and he had people typing things up and editing, and on the other hand, they're both transcendental. Bhaktivinoda Thakur had 14 children. He had a transferable job, just going constantly from place to place. The government would say, just go here now, and he would have to pick up his household and go. And he writes in his autobiography that when he was composing some of his books, he would come back from the court. Mind you, he was judging criminals all day. He'd come back, look at his children's homework, make sure the house is working okay, everybody's all right. And then he would sit down in the evening and write these songs. And there was no electricity. It's a kerosene lamp. And in that way, with his pen and his handwriting, he composed 100 volumes. Can you imagine? I think it's superhuman. And something he says is that if I can do it, you can do it.
No.
Because Krishna consciousness is something that actually sometimes makes people superhuman. Right? It's not ordinary to wake up day after day, early in the morning, and keep pushing on Mahaprabhu's movement. It's not easy, and it's not ordinary. But yeah, that's the breadth of his works, and I would think about 40% of it has been translated. The major works have been translated. There are so many articles, so many songs that have not been. And so what I have with me here tonight, and after this program, please feel free to stop by and take a look at it. is a journal I discovered which was never published before. Because, after 8-10 years of just constantly studying Bhaktivinoda Thakur for practically 10 hours a day, you become somewhat familiar with his works. It's like, I've seen a lot of this stuff, but I haven't seen these. So I kept digging and digging and digging. It's like, I don't think anybody has this. So somehow by Krishna's grace, I came across a notebook signed Kedarnath Datta, and he dated it 13 July 1871. How many years is that? Who's good at math? About 153 years back. He was sitting and writing these notebooks, and somehow, as he was getting transferred from place to place, one of his notebooks got lost. And then somebody found 2 poems from this, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's magazine, Gaudiya, published it in its 18th volume. And the rest of it wasn't there. And so as I was going through all the materials I had gathered, I was like, wow, this needs to be shared. How many of you agree? Unpublished works from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Nobody's seen these before. Vaishnavas should know about this. And so he writes this work in the form of a poem letter. You know who it is addressed to? You. He says, and I don't have a translation, so I just live translate it. Ready for this? Ready for this? If you're ready, let's hear a Haribol. Let's do it with a little more enthusiasm. He says, "Oh hey priyo bandhujon." I won't read the whole Bengali, just the first few lines. "Oh hey priyo bandhujon, my dear friends, right? Listen to my request. Shuno mor nivedon. Jodi chaho, if you want, anando apar, if you want boundless happiness." How many of us want boundless happiness? Right? Fair game. So this is the advice he has for us. Jaro shukho nahi mano. Don't accept material pleasure, worldly pleasure to be real. Chidananda shukho jano. Know that real happiness is in transcendence. Ashadam karo shesha. And then go and relish that essence. Madhya mangsho khadya shuk. He says, it is quite pleasurable to eat meat and drink alcohol. I know I don't want any confessions here, but look at New York City. You know. Right? People wouldn't do it unless they liked it. But he says, Shakoli janoho dukh, but know that actually those things are miserable. Shukha bhram matra shabahai. So there is only a temporary illusion of pleasure when you are having those things. Indriyo vilas joto, and every plan and action that you have taken to delight your senses, shakoli shukher moto, they appear externally to be very pleasurable. Kintu nitya shukh nahi thai, but there is no permanent happiness in any of that. আশাপাশে বন্ধ হয়ে অনর্থের সঙ্গ লয়ে কেন ভ্রমিতেছ নিরন্তর? My friends, why have you tied the noose? You know what a noose is? A thick rope that is used to hang people. Why have you tied a noose around your neck, the noose of hope, and made friends with all kinds of wretchedness? And in this way, with the noose around your neck and making friends with all kinds of wretchedness, you're constantly, aimlessly wandering around this world. Asharna ache shesh, there is no end to your hopes. hopes have no end. Mrigo Krishna-abhisheka, and when you pursue any hopes you have in your heart, it will appear like a mirage in a desert at the end. You know what a mirage is like? When you're driving on a hot day, it appears that there is water on the road. And back in the day when they used to ride on camels in the middle of the desert, they would see some water at the end of the road. And they would run to drink that water, and is there water there? It's just false hope. So in this world, if you're trying to be happy, all you really have is false hope. Pholomatro dukher samsar. And when you actually pursue that, where do you end up? You end up in this world miserable. Deharu brikho hote jivapokhi apagate indriyartho ki koribe hai. He said, your body is like a very big tree. And at the end, that life that you have will go away. Chandra Surjo Bayu Jal Prokashya Shiobol Amontrite Naribe Tomai. And the elements of nature, the moon and the sun, the wind and water, will wash away your body. They will not invite you to a banquet. Priyajan Kolahal. It is so nice to live among people who are already always talking and joking and making a lot of halabalu. Kolahal means halabalu. Hahutas Chintanal. And when you are living with your loved ones, you know what happens? You sigh and you are plagued with anxiety. Jagaite pare ki tomare? Actually, can these things wake you up? Mahanidra jale pore jabe tumi pori jabe tumi goragori bhishokir bishadi vikare. You have fallen into a great web of sleep. That is the material world. And now you're tossing and turning in your dreams. Has that ever happened? You're sleeping and you're dreaming and you're tossing and turning in your dreams. And in an ashram, I've lived in ashrams before. Pancharatna Prabhu kindly reminded that I wake up at 4 a.m. And I said, that's standard. But in an ashram, some people wake up early, some people wake up late. In the early days of Krishna consciousness, some people wake up at 2:30. They want to chant 16 rounds before Mangalarati. Has it happened? And then in the ashram, those who are awake know those who are asleep. But those who are asleep, do they know who's awake? This is the same thing in the material world. Those who are awake, like Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, know exactly who's asleep. Because they are awake. But we are asleep, therefore we don't know who is awake. These people look like ordinary people. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur is chanting these verses so that we can wake up. And then he says, Je deher snehe tumi bhromitecho koto bhumi kukkur shrigala taha khai. Any Bengalis in the house tonight? You follow what I'm saying? This is Sadhu Bhash. So the love for your body that is making you wander from country to country is ultimately food for dogs and jackals. He's like equal opportunity offender. He's not sparing anybody. He said, you take such good care of your body and you travel to so many places because you love your body, but actually that is food for dogs and jackals. Jotoi joton koro, no matter how good you take care of your body, kaler koralo koro, the jaws of time is very cruel. Deho nahi chhare kubuhai, it will not let go of your body. Otoeb taji bhram, therefore my friends, give up your delusions. Paramarthe karo shram. Put great effort into spiritual activities. Bhajo Krishna, worship Krishna, who will delight your heart. Bhautik varanantar, at the time when you are actually quitting your body. Monorupi shubibor, the beautiful form of your spiritual body. Bheditaha chalo Vrindavan. You will go, you'll pierce through your physical body, your subtle body, and then one day you will find yourself where? In Vrindavan. Okay. Now, we keep hearing that one day we will go back to Godhead, right? Or at least we are here gathered tonight because one day we want to go back to Godhead. This is like a waiting room. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains what it is like after you've gone back to Godhead. Who wants a trailer? I want a louder Haribol for this one. He says, once you enter the spiritual world, what will you notice? Gopo Bresho Abhrokanti Turuno Bishado Shanti Kalpodrumo Ashrito Sundar Aparupa Bongshishware Sarvajive Motto Kare Jata Shyam Hridayeshwar. You will meet a little boy. He's dressed as a cowherd boy. He is glowing. He is very youthful. And he is very serene. And he stands under a kadamba tree which fulfills all your wishes. And he plays a beautiful flute. And by the sound of that flute, he enchants the hearts of all living entities. And he is the Lord of your heart, known as Shyam. The infinite number of living entities surround and circle him like cows, and his opulence is unparalleled. But his sweetness is much more attractive than everything else that he has. And right under the kadamba tree, whose flowers look like it's bristling, your skin will bristle, and with the sound of that flute, Krishna will capture the heart and mind of sadhakas. At that point, whatever attachment we have towards material opulences will be destroyed by the power of detachment and letting go. Through hearing and chanting, the creeper of your bhakti will manifest. And for this reason, and he brings us back right here, he says that for this reason, stay in the association of devotees. Give up the association that is negative. Remember that song? It says, do whatever is favorable, reject whatever is unfavorable. He repeats it here. And then he makes a promise to all of us. And this is my favorite line. He says, Krishna oti dure noy. I will tell what the meaning is, but I want to hear the Bangla from your lips. Krishna oti dure noy. Krishna tabo prana. Do not think Krishna is far away. Krishna is actually in your life breath. You know, sometimes we think Krishna is so far away. Even geographically, Vrindavan is so far away. And psychologically, Krishna is the farthest from whatever we are doing. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, actually, Krishna is right here, right now. There is only one way you are able to see Krishna. Jodi prema sudha karopan. Only if you drink the ambrosia of love, you will be able to see Krishna. Then he says, Joggo home, karma shop, all these fire sacrifices and cultivation of knowledge, Advaita and all of these, know these things to be poison towards that particular love. Remember, you're a servant of Krishna. And the pursuit of knowledge for the sake of it and the pursuit of rituals for the sake of it is actually a noose around your neck, and your only real wealth is love. And so, by the power of that love, keep your senses and your body under your feet in full control. And then, one day, my dear friends, things in this material world will not be able to bind you. Okay? So that was just a few excerpts from the first song. In the second song, he gets deeper into what is the spiritual world like, and the song is called Vrindavan. But I want to pause here and open up the floor for more questions, comments, realizations. Anything that you've been looking to say? Yes,
sorry.
please. Go ahead.
I guess this last point, I had a question in terms of to get that love, you would need to control mind and senses, but here it's like love coming first and then controlling mind and senses.
Yeah, I mean, the Bhagavad points out that if you artificially try to control your mind and senses, it will backfire.
I see.
But if you try to control your mind and senses by giving up what you want because you're getting something better, right, then it's easy. Like, say you have $10,000 that is very hard earned, and somebody says, you invest these $10,000, but I can guarantee you that you get $100,000 out of it. Now you trust this person, and you know that this person has at least 300,000. So even if you lose your 10 grand, he will give you your 100 grand back. He's signing a contract. But parting with the 10 grand that is very hard earned is difficult, right? There is a lot of emotions involved. So, all of us here spend 9 luxurious months inside someone's womb. Till there was a real estate crunch. It's New York, real estate is expensive. And we couldn't live there anymore, we came out. And after that, it took us at least 5 to 10 years to figure out alphabets and sentences and what to eat and what not to eat and all of that, right? And when we are very, very young, whoever is raising us, to us they are heroes. They cannot go wrong. And then one day we find out that Santa Claus doesn't exist. It's such a disappointment. And then we realize that they're saying, my daddy strongest. And then someday you found out somebody can punch your daddy too. Right? And then we start asking questions, how the heck did we get here? I didn't sign up for this. And so by nature's arrangement, all these difficulties in life keep prodding us to ask us these real questions. Right? And somehow, if by great fortune you come across someone who knows the answer, they short-circuit the process. But to be able to accept Krishna consciousness, one has to give up a lot of things. But the return on investment, anybody who has been here at least 1 year in Krishna consciousness, tell me, has the return on investment been good? It has been great. Right? If it wasn't, you wouldn't be here tonight. The thing is, it takes some sacrifice, right? And that sacrifice requires at least a little bit of faith. Ado Shraddha. Getting on a bus is an act of faith. Getting on a plane is an act of faith. Falling in love is an act of faith. Accepting a guru is an act of faith. Right? When people fall in love, they don't think, what is it going to be like 3 years from now? It's totally unpredictable. But you think it's all going to work out. And you invest. Even though the amount of divorces out there is higher than the amounts of marriages that actually survive. But we still put faith. We put faith in so many things. And then there is this one thing that requires some sacrifice. And it's an act of faith to invest ourselves just a little bit. And I say, till date, I have never asked anybody to follow any of the regulatory principles. I just hang out with them. If they start, they start. Till date, I haven't found anybody regretting. And to be honest, if somebody wants to go back, they will go back. Right? None of our prerogative. And Krishna says that even if you stop, at some point you will start again. If you have come to point 10, you will start from point 11. You don't restart from point 1. Right? And so the power of what we have is so great that other things like controlling our senses, we have come to sleep. This is the material world. What do you expect? Right? But when, say you're in a relationship, right? You've promised somebody your undying loyalty and dedication. And then you meet somebody who at least temporarily feels or looks better. Right? If you give in, that is called cheating, isn't it? And so it is by the power of your love that you're sacrificing something that is not that worth, even if it looks great at the moment. So controlling our senses and the body, things like that. Right? If we love Krishna enough, by the power of that love, we will tell ourselves, even if I feel like having, I don't know, I'm just thinking, having something. And it's not actually worth it. I love Krishna more than this. And if it isn't like that, Krishna is also very forgiving. And that guilt that we experience, it's also, I think, the voice of the Paramatma. And it course corrects. Was I able to answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Yes.
Pass it back to him.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for such a nice class. And my question is to be quite honest, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is quite a mystery to me. Like I know puzzle pieces of his life, and he wrote so many, especially beautiful prayers. I know he was acharya, if he was a family guy, he worked, and he did everything perfectly in his devotional life. But sometimes it's kind of difficult to understand the context of how important his role was in Krishna consciousness. And specifically, why is knowing Bhaktivinoda Thakur important to me or my Krishna consciousness? So I was wondering if you could put it in simple terms, what is the key role that Bhaktivinoda Thakur played in Krishna consciousness?
Okay, that's a very good question. First of all, Bhaktivinoda Thakur doesn't present himself to be anyone, to be a perfect personality. He says he failed in his exams. How many of us have failed in our exams? And then many years later, after having a very successful career, wrote about it. At this age, I failed in my exams. And he was constantly very sick. And, nothing in his life seemed in order when he was living it. I can promise you that. So why is he relevant? I'll tell you. First of all, no other Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharya before Bhaktivinoda Thakur spent any time or thought figuring out how to take Krishna consciousness to the West. They were pretty happy wherever they were. They were immersed in their, the land of India is sacred. If anybody is interested, they can come here. The British, the Mughals, the Turks, the Afghans are anyway invading India. And if they find something worthwhile, they will get it. And that is the truth. That's what happened. Many people just took to Ram Bhakti or Krishna Bhakti, even if they came to invade. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was the first one who actually sent books and letters to Ralph Waldo Emerson. You've heard of Emerson? Who does that? Here's why he is so special. Much before Vivekananda, much before Yogananda, much before anybody brought yoga to the West, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was thinking of bringing yoga to the West. Of course, right now yoga means physical exercises, but Bhaktivinoda Thakur felt that the process of Krishna consciousness is the real yoga. And what else did he do? Well, he discovered Mahaprabhu's birthplace. For a long time, the birthplace was considered to be on the other side of the river. And people would go there for pilgrimage, but nobody really dug into it. He brought the Archaeological Survey of India as a deputy magistrate to do the digging. He found archaeological remains saying this is the birthplace of Sri Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So, locating the birthplace. Second, all the books that we read, including the Chaitanya Charitamrita, was for all practical purposes almost lost. So he went around, collected these books, and printed and preserved them so that we could have it. And then he was sending these books to the leaders and thinkers of the West and universities around the Western world. And therefore Srila Prabhupada called him the pioneer of the worldwide Krishna consciousness movement. He's the pioneer. Why should we know him? Because he's the pioneer. Right? But most importantly, and Srila Prabhupada pointed this out, that Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur were ascetics. They were monks. Within our immediate acharyas, we don't have an example of people who are married with children, running a solid career, and being so productive in Krishna consciousness. Right? So that makes him different. But more than that, the songs we sing, you sing the song Jayo, Jayo. You know the song? Arati Kosho. Who wrote this one? Bhaktivinoda Dekhe Gorar Sampad. You know this song? Bhaja Bhagata Shakala Sri Gaura Hari. You know this song? Afternoon. Who wrote that song? Tulasi Krishna Preyashi Namo Namo. Do you know Krishna Dashis? You know the song Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Giri Varadhari. So I didn't know this, but when I was doing my research, I found out that he had one set of deities in Orissa called Radha Madhava. He had a second set of deities in Godrum called Kunja Vihari. And he had the third set of deities in Calcutta called Gopijana Vallabha, and he had Giri Varadhari. The song we sing are the names of his deities. And after this class, I have it on my phone. If you want to see Giri Varadhari and Gopijana Vallabha, I can show you. It was at his house in Bhakti Bhavan in Calcutta. So essentially, we are in his movement. He is a special personality because he is the pioneer of the global bhakti movement. Bhakti as a thing would be unknown unless he was around. As simple as that. And so, was I able to answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
But most importantly, his name is an instruction to us, I believe. Bhakti, you know what bhakti is? Vinod means delight. If you are spending all your time and you do not delight in devotion, Bhagavatam says, Shrama eva hi kevalam, you're just using your time doing hard work for nothing. Bhaktivinoda Thakur teaches us how to relish bhakti. Most importantly. Right? And in his practical life, I'll say a few more words that will hopefully help all of us appreciate it better. When he was very young, about 11 years old, there was an epidemic in his village, and his entire family got wiped out. Only his mother and his sister survived. Can you imagine? Everything that you know is gone. And you just somehow escape. And so when he was 12 years old, he found himself as the head of his family. Because neither his mother nor his sister could speak, be in a city. They've grown up in a village. They couldn't interact with anybody. And it was his responsibility to go out and earn money at the age of 12. So somebody gave him the task of selling sugar in the streets of Calcutta. And he realized that in that business, you had to cheat in order to make any money. And within a few days he gave it up. Yeah, I would rather starve as a family than cheat. Right? So that integrity, I think, is very important for us to. And about 10, 15 years back, when I was in his house and I was interviewing his family, and they became very close at one point. His great-granddaughter-in-law said, she opened up all of his belongings, and we were going through everything. And I said, are there any stories about him that you say in your house? And he said, yes, there is one thing he used to tell to everybody. He kept repeating to everybody. He said, bless you. He said, Age manush hao, tarpor Vaishnav hobe. First become a human being, then try to become a Vaishnava. So important. When we come to Krishna consciousness, we somehow think, we are like grown wings and horns. I don't know. But his point is first learn to become a human being and then think about becoming a Vaishnava. And it confirms what Prabhupada did. Regulative principles are meant to bring us to a human platform. Then we chant Hare Krishna. Right? And he had a very difficult life, to be honest. But I sat down with Radhanath Maharaj one time. I asked him, I'm reading Bhaktivinoda's biography, and he's like every page, autobiography, every page, he's like a confession. This thing went wrong, and that person died, and this person, and he said, I spent 200 rupees, all my savings, to buy a printing machine so I could print these books. And the paper guy was cheating me out of, so much money every month, I was broke. And, he kept, and I asked Maharaj, why? We worship Bhaktivinoda Thakur as this person on the altar, and then I see that, he's falling sick, and his children are all over the place, and, he's getting cheated, and he fails in his exams, all of this. And Maharaj said that is the sign that he is a Paramahamsa. That somebody who is able to go through all of these difficulties in life, and yet remain fully Krishna conscious. That is a Paramahamsa. So that is why he is significant. And to conclude, we should know this, all devotees should know this, that he essentially gave 3 instructions to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his son. The first instruction was, develop Mayapur. So today we know, Mayapur used to be this huge amount of land with jungles and very few people. Today is huge, it's a pilgrimage center and a booming town. Another instruction he gave is, please reform the ascetic order of Vaishnavas. Because Vaishnavas were pretending to be ascetics and engaging in all kinds of nonsense. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur implemented them. The third thing he said, reach out to Westerners. And see the result right here, we are in Brooklyn, New York. So that is why he's significant. Okay, other questions, comments, thoughts? Yes, Panchal. Hare Krishna.
A few questions for a Bhaktivinoda Thakur scholar. One is Krishna Samhita and the statements there about heaven and hell and the descriptions of heaven and hell. This is often, it's somewhat mysterious. What was Bhaktivinoda Thakur's purpose and objective in the way he wrote about making, in that literature he describes that these are basically creations, and you could say anyway, they're stories. But others say, well, this was for a particular audience. So this is another facet that is very intriguing, how Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and this plays itself out into many, many different areas of debate.
Yes.
When did Bhaktivinoda Thakur use a lot of poetic license or did he adjust, or did he do things and say things and write things for the audience of the time that we now have to go back and say, well, wait a minute, this was said in a certain way for those people, but it's not for us today.
Yeah.
So
No,
what
that
are
is
your
the
thoughts
point.
on that?
Essentially, in that particular book, he was practically preaching to atheists. And his point was, even if you are an atheist, you can still accept Krishna. But for us, and he uses very strong lines of arguments that works for that audience. For us, our mindset is not the same as the audience's mindset for that book. But he said that, I've written this book in such a way that even devotees can benefit from it. In the second edition, he added a footnote saying, all these things are not prakrita shraddha. Prakrita shraddha means simple or natural devotion or natural faith. And so if I were to follow his line of argument, and we are talking about a book, for those who are not familiar, that he wrote called Krishna-abhisheka, where he says things like, hell, the descriptions of hell are written for those who wouldn't behave otherwise. Right? And he says that this book is meant for those who accept the method of adhunikvad. Adhunikvad means contemporary theory. And he himself, wrote that book, and later in his autobiography, he said that I was very misunderstood for writing that book. He said that. Because even the Vaishnavas couldn't differentiate between aprakrita and paramartha. What is spiritual and what is transcendental. Is that Jananiva's Prabhu? Yes. I say transcendental and the transcendental word just appears. What a pleasant surprise. And so the Krishna Samhita was written for a particular audience, as you correctly pointed out. Because in Bengal at that point, there was this whole movement to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to say. That we cannot accept Krishna. We cannot accept anything like this. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur's point was, hey, even if you just accept Indian history, this is who Krishna is. Krishna is for everybody. Right? And so he was reaching out and including people who are outside of the fold and giving arguments on why Krishna is acceptable. And if I were to simplify that argument, say I was having an argument or a conversation with an atheist who tells me God doesn't exist. Right? Now I say, fine, but is it true that a lot of people who practice this meditation have divine experiences? You can say God doesn't exist, but you cannot say that divine experiences don't exist. Right? So this is the Vyatireka, the indirect way of pointing to the existence of divinity. And the Srimad Bhagavatam points out in the very first verse, Janmadya siyataha anvayad itaratascha arti. Anvaya and itarata, the direct method and the indirect method of knowing the Lord. Right? So we come to know about Krishna through the direct method. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was using the Vyatireka method, the indirect method to point to Krishna. Right? And so therefore, he gave concessions where there were details, and he held on to his argument, which was the core, right, in dealing with such audiences. Was I able to answer your question? It's an unanswerable question to me, but at least a reflection.
I think, though, that, my own reflection on this is that
Yes.
he was Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He could do things that we cannot do.
True.
And so he took license. He did, and I'm glad you pointed out that in his own You said there's some footnotes.
Yeah, in the second edition, he added a footnote, which is different from the first edition. It says, this line of reasoning is not natural faith.
Yeah, so he gave a warning to us
Yes.
that
Yes.
don't understand what I'm doing here,
Yes.
and take it. But he could do these things. We have to be very careful
Yes, very true.
ourselves, because we're not
Very true.
in his position.
Yeah. And
So that
he
was-
also points out, and Prabhupada points out, Anusharan, not Anukaran. Anukaran is mimicry, and Anusharan is following in their footsteps. So we follow in the footsteps of great souls, we don't mimic them. Mimicry doesn't lead anywhere, it just leads to disaster. Thank you for pointing that out.
I also feel that there's probably some mysteries yet to be understood
Absolutely.
from these words that are yet to be revealed to us, because even I feel that personally, I feel that Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his writings, this is just one aspect. I brought this one out because it's kind of fairly well known, but there are many other areas of his life and his writings which are mysterious. I'll point out one which
Yes,
we're out.
yes.
Where is Pulina?
Where is?
Where is Pulina?
Pulin.
Pulina in his Navadvip, what is it? Navadvip Bhavataranga. When he describes his travel through Rudradvip, he describes a place called Pulina, which is Vrindavan. And he sees,
Pulin is Yamuna, right?
where is it in Navadvip Dham? What is he seeing? It's somewhere in Rudradvip, but no one yet has been able to tell me, okay, well, this area is Pulina. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur saw that. He saw so many things. He saw, his vision of Navadvip is
Very mystical.
it's totally mystical. And so there's much yet to be revealed to those who are fortunate enough to
Yes.
advance to that
I
level.
agree. I agree. Thank you so much for that. Other comments, questions, thoughts, realizations on? Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You were mentioning that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur is the pioneer of Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada mentions that. That I was reflecting on, there are many different Gaudiya Sanghas, even mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the branches of the Chaitanya tree. Somehow this Bhaktivinoda Dhara, this line of Bhaktivinoda Thakur seems to have exploded beyond proportions in relative to the other branches of coming from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami, even up to Rupa Goswami. Is there something in his formula that is different from the other lines that made it so accessible and so that people are able to take it very easily? That's kind of absent in the other, or something like that.
I'm unqualified to answer that question. I think it is his sweetness and his smartness. He was extreme. But there is one historical observation. That is, nobody thought that Gaudiya Vaishnavism was a thing that could happen outside of Bengal. It was a quintessentially Bengali thing. Right? And Bhaktivinoda Thakur really brought out the universal nature of this. And he was the first one to say, this is, like in our life, in our generation, we can say that you do not become Chinese if you eat noodles. Right? So Bhaktivinoda Thakur was saying, you don't need to be a Bengali to be able to understand this. In fact, he has an article written in his Sajjan Toshini journal called Krishna Hriday Vaishnav Dharmer Uday, which means the dawn of Vaishnavism in a Christian heart. And he points out to a Christian theologian called Johann Newman. And he points out all of his writings and says, this person has never heard of Krishna, Vrindavan, Vaishnavism. But you look at his writings and you tell me, is he not a Vaishnava? I think he is a Vaishnava. So it was very bold on his part. And then he says that among us there are so many people wearing tilak, tulsi, everything, and they are not Vaishnavas. They are externally Vaishnavas. Those who are humble, those who have realized that they are a spirit soul, those who have realized that the love between them and the Lord is that of love, is a Vaishnava, even if they appear in Islamic culture, in Christian culture, whatever culture they may be. Whereas the rest of the Gaudiya tradition was like, unless you come to Bengal and you eat with your right hand and you mix your dal with your bhat and have it with the chachuri, you're not white. Right? So I think this broad-mindedness, this welcoming attitude, this inclusivity is what made Bhaktivinoda Thakur's Dhara, as you pointed out, much more approachable. His point was to make it accessible, to make it open, make it universal. But most importantly, it is just sweet. It's very sweet. But it also, Thakur pointed out, okay, here are the upasampradayas. Even when you're thinking you're getting really transcendental, you're basically rowing your boat with your anchor down if you don't take care of these things. So it's a very complete ecosystem, which is easy to handle. That's why I think it spread so quickly. Was I able to answer? Yes, thank you. Other questions? Yes, please.
Is there any records of him converting or making
Is there any
Foreign invaders,
is there any records of him what?
of him like converting or making devotees kind
Converting?
of thing, of like British people or foreign
Oh.
invaders or Portuguese or something. Sorry about that.
I mean, he reached out to a lot of people.
Yes.
They were very favorable towards him. But since you asked that question, I'm about to drop a little bomb. That might be very interesting from the Gaudiya Vaishnava perspective. And I have an academic article on this online, if you want to look it up. So in 1893, when Swami Vivekananda was here, he was preaching, and he had a disciple called Mary Louise, who he initiated as Swami Abhayananda. She was a Chicago lady. So when this lady came to Calcutta, for the first time she heard about Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And she was exploring Indian culture and she realized that this is the real deal. And so she wanted to become a Vaishnava, no longer a sannyasi. So she went to Shishir Kumar Ghosh. And Shishir Kumar Ghosh and Bhaktivinoda Thakur were very tight friends. And Shishir Kumar Ghosh said, now you have taken sannyas, you cannot just, first of all, women taking sannyas is like, odd at that time. Now that you've taken sannyas, you cannot just go back. So do one thing. In your sannyasi dress, wear tilak and tulasi and go around India and preach the holy name in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So for the rest of her life, that's what she did. So technically, the first Gaudiya Vaishnava sannyasi was a woman who was a disciple of Vivekananda, who came under the influence of Shishir Ghosh and Bhaktivinoda Thakur and traveled around India. And she was very popular during her times. And there are some newspaper articles here and there that I found out. Right? And I wrote about it. So that record is there. Other records I haven't seen. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I was thinking it wouldn't be something official because you
Nothing
explained
official.
his
I mean,
broad mind and the broad
he didn't accept too
spectrum.
many disciples. I have a list. I think there were about maybe maximum 30. But he had thousands of followers. And his core group of disciples would just, manage everything and work on his behalf. And he was, from what I understand, he was a very humble person, despite his stature. When I was in his house, one of the letters I came across said, okay, this is another little bomb. Right? Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was writing to his son on his deathbed. And his son, you see, Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his son Saraswati Thakur. And he said, "My dear Bimala," Bimala he used to call Bimala Prasad, "My dear Bimala, it seems that my time is near. And it is my last wish to see the face of a good Vaishnava before I depart. So can you please come here and give me your darshan? Your father, Bhaktivinoda." I haven't seen any other father talk to their son like that. Right? And that also answers your question, Devaki, that why is he significant? Because of this. Right? And was that a good reflection on your question?
Yeah.
Other questions, comments, thoughts for the night? We have 10 minutes. If not, I can tell you some more stories from the life of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. One stories from his life. So he writes in one article, that article is called The Passing of Achyutananda Prabhu. So in that article he says that I was just witness to a very glorious passing of a Vaishnava. It appears that this Vaishnava had committed some offense and therefore they had to be here in this material world. And this devotee was disabled for some time. And he says that I was sitting next to him during his passing. And it was the most auspicious passing because as he was passing on, some Vaishnavas appeared from nowhere to come and see him. And I see from his veins a tilak appear on his forehead. And I knew that he is going back to Godhead. This is the article, okay? And now do you know who this article is about? It is about his eldest son. His eldest son was passing away in front of his eyes. And he sat at his deathbed and said that he had committed some offense to some Vaishnavas, that's why he had to take birth here. And that's why he had the short life, difficult life. And now that he was passing, I witnessed auspicious signs on his body and Vaishnavas appeared from somewhere. You see? So he was talking about his own son in that particular way. So we have something to learn from him. Right? And there was one time, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was in Jagannath Puri and his son, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who was a complete opposite personality. Saraswati Thakur looked more like his mother than his father. Right? And he was also very temperamental. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur would find the softest, kindest way of correcting somebody. And Saraswati Thakur would walk into the same situation with all guns blazing. So one time there was one sadhu in Jagannath Puri who had invented a very nice little poem and asked all of his followers to sing this poem. And his movement spread like wildfire. And Saraswati Thakur was, he went straight to this person and says, what kind of a rascal are you? Why are you spreading this misinformation? And Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a servant called Krishna-das Babaji who wrote his biography, Bhaktivinoda Charita. He talks about this incident there. And so Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually asserted his authority, removed his son, and went and told this sadhu that, yes, I understand you are doing this. It is not correct to misguide Vaishnavas. So what shall we do? And Saraswati Thakur was like, you have to go and apologize to everybody and make it very public. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, actually do one thing. You retire from your preaching. Go and do your secluded bhajan, whatever you have to do. Don't do it further. And damage control will happen later. Right? Just very two different personalities. Another time, I don't know if I'll become controversial for saying this, but I'll say it. There's this, in Calcutta, there was a very famous Kali devotee called Sri Ramakrishna. And back in the day, he was just gaining popularity. So Ramakrishna's disciple was Vivekananda, but Vivekananda had a brother who wrote a book about Ramakrishna. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote a book review explaining his perspective on Ramakrishna. Okay, who's interested now?
Yeah.
Be careful.
I'm very careful.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
I'm very careful. I know.
Maybe press
This is what
pause.
Bhaktivinoda, no, let it go. The Vaishnava should hear this. This is what Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur does. He says that I hear about this Babaji from Dakshineshwar. Okay. And then he goes straight into saying, what are the symptoms of devotion in a genuine sadhu? And then he concludes by saying, if this person is a genuine sadhu, I don't know him personally, then my koti dandavat pranams at his feet. That's all he says. If he's a genuine sadhu, I have nothing against him. My dandavats at his feet. I don't know him. But this book has appeared to me, and I have heard about him. And I think we should be careful and measure every sentiment and expression of devotion against legitimate shastras. You see how he was?
Yes.
Because he was a deputy magistrate, he had to.
Yeah,
Was that fair, Prabhu? So, yes.
I was just wondering, as you were speaking, during Mahaprabhu's time, this, I think it was Jagannath Attahari, these Attaharis from Orissa.
Otibari.
Yes. So they have this Oriya Bhagavatam with 13 cantos. So did Srila and they grew after the disappearance of Mahaprabhu. So how did Bhaktivinoda Thakur deal with these personalities?
He wrote articles. He pointed. See, the thing is, Saraswati Thakur also, as he grew older, my impression is he became softer. When he was very young, he was, no nonsense. When it was, like for those who were corrupting Vaishnavism, till the last breath he was very heavy. But there was one time in his mott, for example, and I'll come to the Otibari question. There was one time in his mott, I think it was Pandav Nijal Ekadashi, a day like today. Some brahmachari felt, I need to rest. So he was in his quarters sleeping, and Saraswati Thakur was just doing his rounds, making sure everything is okay. And he saw this devotee was sleeping. And he came and asked him, he said, why are you sleeping? He said, Prabhupada, today is Ekadashi. I've been fasting, Nirjala. Oh, you come with me. So Saraswati Thakur brought that brahmachari with him, and you know where he took him? To the kitchen. And he brought up some rice, and brought some dal, and he cooked some khichdi. He sat there and he fed this brahmachari, and then he gave him a bag of books. He said, Ekadashi is for Hari Bhajan. If you're feeling weak, please eat something, go out and preach. Because if you're fasting and sleeping, this is niyamagraha. You're just following rules, but you're not doing anything substantial. Better to eat khichdi, feel healthy, go out and distribute books. Right? That is, so Saraswati Thakur would treat his own disciples like that. Sometimes, devotees would bicker with each other in the mud. Saraswati Thakur would observe that, and then in the next fortnight he would have a Gaudiya magazine. So something, say if devotees were fighting about money, so then he would choose some verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam on why devotees shouldn't fight about money. And he published an article, and he gave this gift to the Bhajanas who are fighting. This version is for you. Please read it carefully. There is some spiritual instructions for you. So Saraswati Thakur was like that. But when it came to Otivaris or any of the Sampradayas, his point was, if you want to have sex, go have all the sex you want. Don't make Krishna as an excuse for that. Because people were doing nonsense under the guise of religion. That is what Saraswati Thakur had a problem with. That don't drag religion because you want to cover up your activities. If you're a debauch, be an honest debauch. Go out to do what you want. Don't drag Mahaprabhu into this. Right? So this, and what happened is when Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj had passed away, Saraswati Thakur came to give him samadhi, and everybody said, no, you are not his disciple. He said, is there anybody here who are fighting with me who has not slept with a prostitute in the last 1 month? Come and give him samadhi. Okay, forget 1 month, 1 week. Anybody in this crowd who has not slept with a prostitute in 1 day, come and give him samadhi. And nobody could open their mouth because everybody knew what they were doing. They said, if you are like that, you don't have a right to open your mouth. Right? So Saraswati Thakur was like that. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he made the same statement but in a different way. This is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's style. Okay? Bhaktivinoda Thakur saw that all of these things were going on and he said, Vimala, do something. And this is why Saraswati Thakur took sannyas, gave himself sannyas. But this is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur did. You ready for this? He went to Gaurkishore Babaji. And Gaurkishore Babaji was technically, in the eyes of outsiders, like a chokidar. If you go to his house in Swarupganj, you will see Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house. Outside there is a small house where Gaurkishore Das Babaji used to live. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur had saved the Kopin and Bohirbash of Jagannath Das Babaji. And after Jagannath Das Babaji passed away, he came to Gaurkishore Baba and said, Gaurkishore Baba, can you give me Babaji sannyas? So Gaurkishore Baba gave him the Bhavashram mantra, Babaji, everything. And Babaji means renounced, right? So after you become a Babaji, you're supposed to go and get lost in Vrindavan or Navadip or Puri. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you know what he said? Grihe thako, bone thako, sada hari bole dako. And so when he was sick, he went back to his house. And that freaked everybody out. How can you take Babaji and then go back to your house? And he said, but that's the point. Babaji means it shouldn't matter what your circumstances are. You are now fully dedicated. You have no worldly business. Your only job is to chant the holy names and hear Krishna Katha and speak Krishna Katha. And in 1907, Bhaktivinoda Thakur had a stroke. So the left side of his body was paralyzed. And you know what he said? He said, this is Krishna's biggest blessing to me. Have you ever heard somebody say like that? Somebody gets a stroke, half of his body is paralyzed, and he says, this is Krishna's biggest blessing because he has kept the right side active. Now I can peacefully sit and chant the holy names. I have no other activities. Nobody will push me to do anything. I'm a Babaji, my right side is functioning, my right side of my mouth is functioning. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, I can chant. So for the last 7 years of his life, he was constantly immersed in meditation. He was writing a book called Swaniyam Dvadashakam, 12 Rules for Myself. And he was chanting. He couldn't finish that book. And in this way, he passed on. But Saraswati Thakur went and said things in public. Bhaktivinoda Thakur just wore his Kopin Bohirbash, went back home, made a statement. And when you asked about the British government, right? He was a deputy magistrate. He requested for early retirement. Early on the British were not so mean with the Indians. Later on they began. So when that thing began, he didn't want to be in the government anymore. This is what he did. He put on the dress of a beggar and went on the streets of Calcutta doing kirtan with his group of people, collecting 1 rupee each from house to house to make the temple in Mayapur called Yogapith. Now imagine if a magistrate that everybody knows is now walking on the street as a beggar. Does this send a good message to the government? So he made his point without uttering a single word. So that was his personality. Okay, any last question? We have 1 minute to go. Any last question, comment, response, blessings? Yes, okay, she wants to bless us.
Hare Krishna. Earlier you mentioned how vast Bhaktivinoda Thakur's work is. And I'm just wondering, like, for us, we know if we start with Bhagavad Gita, and then Bhagavatam, and then Chaitanya Charitamrita, that's the best way. So I'm wondering if we want to read Bhaktivinoda Thakur, is there a starting place and some progression?
Sharanagati, the first song we did. In fact, Saraswati Thakur would have every new devotee memorize Bhaktivinoda Thakur's songs and Narottam Thakur's songs, and when they began their devotional life. Of course, they were Bengalis, it was easy for them. And Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, as it is based on Baladev Vidyabhushan and Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote 2 commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita. So we studied the first one, which is the more philosophical one. And then the second one recently got translated by Bhanu Maharaj, by Vishwanath Chakravarti. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful to Prabhu Vishnu Prabhu, Janaki, Mataji for organizing this, and very grateful to all of you who came here tonight. Today is Pandam Nirjal Ekadashi, so I don't have a feast. The feast is in your mind. Reserved for tomorrow morning. Hare Krishna.